Hey everyone, welcome to Meeple Bits. Thanks for joining me for this setup and how-to for the game Emerge. Emerge is a game for 2 to 4 players with a playtime of about 75 minutes. This one, bear with me as we go through the setup because the board is very long and I could not fit it on the entire camera, so we're only basically going to be looking at half the board for the duration, but since each half is essentially the same, you'll get the idea for this how-to. So just keep that in mind as we're going through. And as always, guys, before we dive into this one, please remember to leave a like and subscribe. I do appreciate the support. It really does help the channel. So with that, let's go ahead and dive into Emerge. Hey everyone, welcome to what will be a 2-player setup for the game Emerge. Bear with me as we go through this one because the main play board is massive. What you're looking at here is quite literally only half of the board. There are 8 total rounds in the game, and this being the round tracker as the sailboat goes through. So this is 1 through 4, and then 5 through 8 are all the way on the other side. So for demonstration purposes, though, we're going to kind of hyper-focus in here, but understand that the board is much larger. The only thing that's going to be different in a 2-player setup is where you place your starting island is going to be over here on the far right side of the board. In a 3 or 4-player game, all the way over there by round number 7, there are these additional tectonic fissures that you would instead cover with research tokens. So what does that look like? So to set up a 2-player game, what we're going to do is first put out the main play board. Next, we're going to create draw piles for each of our modifier tiles, keeping them in like stacks. So all of your trees, crabs, turtles, etc. go here. Next, take your research tokens, drawing up 4 research tokens to create a research token market. Then you're going to cover every fissure along the path all the way through the end of the board. So in this 2-player game, we're going to put 2 of them on each of the numbers up through round 7. Well, in a 3-player game, you would only cover 1 of the number 7s. So imagine if this were number 7 over here, these 2 fissures in a 2-player game are empty, so they would be covered with research tokens. In a 3-player game, you would only cover this one, and in a 4-player game, it would not be covered at all. All players should receive 12 total islands, 4 in small, medium, and large, and 4 of their victory point markers. Each player should then place 1 small island nearest to the fissure where they're seated. Next, once you've placed the research token market, you've filled up all of the fissures with research tokens face down. Create then a separate draw pile of the remaining tokens because they will be replaced as players take these tokens from the market, not from the board. Next, place the 4 birds over on the shoreline on the far right side of the board nearest to the 0 marker. Then shuffle the victory point or the goal, drawing up 4 different goals. Now these should all be unique in that you should have no goal that is of the same type. There are 7 different types, and each of these 4 that get displayed should be unique. So if you pull, say, a second seal victory, you'll want to discard that and draw a new one. And then lastly, off screen, we got resource piles for trees, crabs, turtles, and seals. So all of that is over there, which we're going to return these guys to their home for now, and all players are going to draw from the resource pile. And then lastly, make sure that all players do have the dice in the color that they've selected. They should have 10 dice total that are going to be used through the game. And then all players should additionally receive a player mat in their color. Once all players have their islands, their victory point markers, their dice, and their player board, the main play area is set up, and then everyone should have sort of a personal tableau area ready to be used. That completes the initial setup, so let's go ahead and look at how the game is played. Emerge is a game played out over 8 rounds, with each round consisting of 3 phases: the ship phase, the modifier phase, and the discovery phase. In the ship phase, very simply, you're going to move the ship from each number to the next, and then triggering anything along the way. Example, moving from the start position once all players have their starting islands down, you're going to then move the ship into round one, flipping any of these research tokens along the way. These tokens can be then taken from players who then build islands in those spaces. Build islands, grow islands, emerge islands. In addition, when the ship crosses the add a die space, that's not a space that you would stop on, but once they cross that, players will add a die into their starting pool. And at the end of 8 rounds, when the ship reaches the 8th spot from the mainland all the way over to the number 8, you're going to play that round to its conclusion and then determine the winner by calculating any end victory points which players have earned. So that concludes the ship phase, thus moving us into the modifier phase. During the modifier phase, there are really two basic actions that can happen. One, a player may choose one modifier tile to place onto their tableau, keeping in mind that you may have no more than two unique types of modifiers, including the base modifiers. Example, if a player were to draft this tile into their hand like so, I now have two of these tectonic tiles or types visible on my tableau. So I could not, say, take another, thus giving me three. However, if I were to have done, say, this to cover it up with this modifier to get the bonuses that are available on the modifiers, then I would also be able to do this, because again, I only have two uniques being displayed. So that is option one on the modifier phase, to draw a tile, placing it onto your tableau. And then option two, players may move, swap, or move two modifier tiles. So example, let's say these were the modifier tiles that a player had on his board. On the phase two, the modifier phase, a player may move a tile, like so. A player may swap tiles, like so. Or a player may move two modifier tiles. And that's it. Once all players have chosen what to do during this phase, that concludes the modifier phase. In addition, after the ship phase, once the ship has moved and at the beginning of that modifier phase, all players may, as a free action, remove any modifier tiles from their board. You can remove any number of modifier tiles from your main board. This is a free action and happens in advance of this phase. Once players have chosen to remove any modifier tiles, then they are able to choose one of those two options in the modifier phase as indicated, like normal. And we'll cover it in the discovery phase, but each tile does have a modifier. So example, this crab allows a player to re-roll one die up to 2 times. So if this were a modifier on the player board, once they've used this in the discovery phase, they'll flip it over, thus making it unusable for the rest of that phase. At the start of the modifier phase, all tiles that were flipped then get flipped back to their active positions. So to start the discovery phase, all players begin by taking, round one, 6 die, keeping the 4 off to the side. So players in the first round, they'll gain a die in round two. But in the first round, all players will roll their dice and then assign them to the respective positions on their player boards. This is the starting action within the discovery phase. Okay, well, a fairly even roll across the board. So once all players have rolled and assigned their die, during the discovery phase, players have two options. They can make a discovery, or they can purchase research tokens. So how do you make a discovery? Now let's take a look at the player boards in a little bit more detail. Starting with position one. Position one allows you to develop trees onto your islands on the main play board. Position 2 allows you to add crabs to an existing island. Position 3 allows you to add turtles to the island. Position 4, seals. Position 5 allows you to create or grow islands on the main playboard. And then position 6 allows you to either move the bird from the mainland or from the shoreline onto one of your islands, or to move a bird from one island to another. Each of these have their costs. In position 1, it will take 1 to grow a tree. It will take 2 1s to place your second and 3 1s to place your third. For the crabs, you need two 2s. For the turtles, 3 3s, 4 4s. And then here you need 2 5s to create a small island, 3 5s to create a medium, and 4 5s to create a large. And then over here, it's 2 dice, 2 6s to take a bird from the shoreline, and 3 6s to take it from another island. In addition, when making discoveries, discoveries on each island must happen in order, meaning you cannot bring a crab or a turtle to an island that does not already have a crab. The same as a seal. You cannot place a seal on an island that does not already have a turtle and crab. The birds, however, do play by different rules. They can travel to any island and can be taken at any time. So once players are ready to go, now they're able to start to use these dice to make discoveries. So beginning with the first player, so let's assume Orange is first player, they'll be able to use their dice in any way they see fit. So on my turn, let's say for example, I wanted to use these 2 6s. I would discard them back into my draw hand, and then I would take a bird from the main island, bring it over to, well, my only existing small island from the start of the game. In the case of birds, anytime a bird travels to your island, they will bring with it a seed, thus growing a tree on that island. So for player one, they've taken this bird to this island, and it has brought with it a seed to grow a tree. Each island may have a maximum of 4 trees per island, as indicated on your player boards. Each island may have a max of one of the other animal types, as well as one bird. So the only way to get a fourth tree on an island is from a bird essentially bringing a seed to that island. So that'll complete, essentially player one's turn. Then, in sequential order, each player will go around, thus assigning their dice, making discoveries. Option two on making discoveries is on your turn, you can discard any 2 dice to take any one of the 4 tokens, one of the 4 research tokens that are available. So let's say the player were to discard 2 dice and take this research token into their hand to be used at a later time. Research tokens can be used much like the modifier tiles at any time. Research tokens are then discarded upon use. Once a research token has been taken, go ahead and replace it with a new one. And players will continue taking turns until either 1, they have no more discoveries to make, or 2, they have purchased a research token. So once a player has purchased a research token, that ends their turn during that round. In addition, when players are making discoveries and growing their islands, you must grow an island from small to large. You cannot place, say, a large island by discarding 4 of one type, unless there is the previous tier's island available. So you must grow an island vertically. And once all players have either passed their turn, used their dice, or purchased research tokens, the round ends. All players are then going to take any unused dice and prepare them for the next round. Players may keep dice on their playboard without using in between rounds to save them in those positions for the next round. So that's essentially a merge. You're going to, again, ship phase, research phase, discovery phase. 8 times until the game is over. So let's take a quick look before we dive into what endgame scoring looks like, as well as how we leverage these endgame victory points. We'll go ahead and take a quick turn just to sort of show you again in real time what that looks like. So real fast, here on the victory point track, The first player that achieves these conditions, example, place a seal on an island. So the first player that places a seal onto an island will cover with their victory point token the top position. Once a player has done this one time, they could not say do it again and then take the third spot. It is a one position for each player. So before we go into endgame scoring, let's go ahead and play round 2 as an example. So we'll move the ship again, passing the added die section, so players will then take one more die into their hand. And once you've taken a die into your hand, you're then going to flip these research tokens on the next position, readying them for the game. And the ship phase is complete. Now we're going to move into the research phase. Here in the research phase, again, players, if they had any modifiers, which they likely would have from round 1, they would flip those if activated. So here in round 2, I as player 1 am going to, let's do this one. We're going to grab this and place it over my number 2. And player 2 is going to grab this one and place it over their number 3. So once all players have then completed a research, now you're ready for the discovery phase. Again, you're going to take any remaining dice that you haven't used. Now, in this phase, you may have left them here, but that doesn't mean that you can't pull them off. I'm going to go ahead and leave these dice for this round, drawing new ones, placing them like so. Okay. And then player 2 has left all their dice, so they're just going to roll the one die and add it over here. Now that all players have rolled, the first player token would have passed to the yellow player over here, so they would begin the round. On their first turn, they're going to spend this one die to bring a tree to their first and primary island. So on the main board, I've placed a tree. Player 2 is going to go, and on their turn, they're going to spend both of these dice, both these 2s, to then grow an island. So they're going to take a small island from their play area and placing it on any position where a research token has been flipped up. So I'm just going to go ahead and put one right here as an example and take this research token into my hand. This one says that when you steal a bird, grow the island it lands on. This tile allows me to place a turtle for 2 dice. So that's the end of my turn, but I am going to actually go ahead and before ending my turn, use this power, flipping it over, discard 1 to re-roll any die or any dice once. So I'm going to discard this 1 here, and I'm going to re-roll this 5 here. And I got a 6. That's a bummer, but I flip it like so. Then it'll go back to the first player. They're going to use their 2 5s to do the same to grow another small island on the main play board, taking in the research token into their hand. And before they do end their turn, they're going to go ahead and use this power, adding 1 or 2 to a die. So I'm going to turn this into a 6, like so. And then back and forth it'll continue to go until until all players have passed, used their dice, or spent dice on research tokens. Again, you're going to continue this for 8 total rounds until we do the victory point conditions. So for endgame scoring, it's very simple. 1, start by adding these endgame victory point conditions, giving each player their total score from the victory point condition for those cards. Then, score your islands. On an island, a resource is worth 1 victory point. So anything that resides on the island, a tree or animal, so plant life or animals, including birds, is 1 victory point multiplied by the number of tiers there is. So here on this island, this would be worth 1, 2, 3 victory points times 1. Here we would have 1, 2, 3, 4 victory points times 2. So this would be 8 points and this would be 3 points. In addition, at the end, all players get a bonus to biodiversity. So for every island that have four of the different types of meeples on them, score an additional 3 victory points. So this island, 4 times 2 is 8, plus the 3 victory points, giving us a total of 11. And that's it. The player with the most victory points is the winner. So that's going to do it for this one. I'm going to go ahead and tear down Emerge and bring you guys my afterthoughts. Stay tuned. Hey everyone, welcome back. I hope you enjoyed that setup and how-to for the game Emerge. It was a little bit longer than I wanted, but I hope that I communicated everything across. It's sometimes odd how the easier the game is, the more nuances need to be addressed. So it's interesting how that works, especially because the game it's got 8 rounds and 3 phases, but those phases have got a lot of rules to them or intricacies. So with that, guys, let's go ahead and just dive into my afterthoughts on this one. I picked this one up at Gencon 2023. I was just kind of, snaking the event, the exhibit hall as I do every year. And this one at the Pandasaurus booth really caught my attention. The artwork just really kind of popped right off the table. It was very inviting and I had to check it out. So demoed it, really enjoyed it. They were sold out day one, managed to grab a copy, I think like day 3. So yeah, they basically sold out every day they had quantities in. So very, very cool. The components, okay enough. Okay enough. The player boards are just a thin card stock, and I think that's probably my biggest turnoff regarding the components. But otherwise, the animals and the plants are wood tokens, which I do appreciate. The let's see, the island tiles are fine, but it's those really really tiny punch board victory point tokens that are so small and I don't know, just I think a wood token for those victory point markers on the goal cards would have been a much better idea. The shrink tray insert is okay. I really hope someone in the community makes a better one so that I can 3D print that and bring you guys another video on this one. Okay, so otherwise, as you go through this one, it's yeah, there's a lot of strategy involved in this one, which is a welcome thing, especially for a dice drafting style game. So as you're rolling, reassigning, you've got the modifier tiles to kind of hopefully let the luck of the draw be more strategically shifted into your favor, if you will. So that's really good. I really enjoyed that element of it. I think the instruction book could have been better put together in terms of, here's the 3 phases and here's all the do's and don'ts and things like that. Otherwise, it's okay. Now, why is a merge game you may want to add into your collection? One, you love the artwork like I did, and it really just stands and it pops. It plays pretty simple. There were some questions that come up that I kind of had to make a judgment call on when it comes to the wording on some of the cards, which you might notice also some of the wording on the actual player board for the trees. It says first, second, third. So I thought that was pretty interesting and amusing that they left such a glaring typo on the player board, but it's those kind of typos and those sort of interesting things that kind of threw me off a little bit. So that aside, the dice drafting is really really good along with the modifier tiles. It feels buttoned up. Um, another a reason why you may not want to add a merge into your collection, primarily because of the sort of victory point scoring at the end and the way that the birds work. There's a fight for the birds kind of at the last round almost. So it's interesting because if you're the last person in the final round and you have the ability to steal a bird, that could just shift the entire tide of the game. Because if you can get that bird on a 3-tier island, and if you manage to maybe steal 2 birds, for example, because you might have some research tokens, yeah, just like that, the whole game just gets blown up. So you may not want to add this to your question because your collection, because the whole way through the buildup is interesting to then a potential just everything just comes down to this final round 8, and that sometimes can be annoying. But overall, I enjoyed this one. I enjoy the art. I enjoy the dice drafting mechanic. I really enjoy the tiles for modifying your tableau, which then gives each person sort of a different strategy to press their luck against what they think they may get, and the potentially leaving dice on your player board for future rounds, and that sort of take on it. So I did enjoy all these aspects, and overall, Emerge is a very fun game for me. So that'll do it for this one, everyone. If you do have any questions about Emerge, please leave a comment down below. I will answer it the best I can. If you enjoyed the video, I do appreciate the support. Feel free to leave a like and subscribe. And as always, everyone, until next time, thanks so much for watching.